What did I tell you, man? The time after the playoffs conclude, before the NHL draft, this is like, honestly, one of the more underrated 2-week spans-ish throughout the entire NHL year when it comes to rumors, trades, and all this stuff going on with free agency, etc., etc. Let's go over to the Pittsburgh Penguins and talk about a player that has been a subject of contention the past few months in regards to whether or not he's going to return. This guy was one of the defining players in the entire gosh darn league in the late 2000s and early 2010s. He is a 3-time Stanley Cup champion, and he is 35 years old. Let's talk today about Evgeni Malkin, because reports have surfaced from different NHL insiders and analysts as to whether or not his future in Pittsburgh is all too guaranteed. Now, as we said, Malkin, 35 years old, he was making $9.5 million a year since 2014-15. He had a full NMC, and he did not execute any waiving of that NMC throughout the contract in its entirety. He is going to be a free agent. And when it comes to the way the Pittsburgh Penguins have to manage their cap, hey, it's not just Malkin that they have to re-sign. They also do have to re-sign Chris Letang. These two have been big parts of the Penguins and their overall body of success the past decade and a half, so it's definitely understandable to see the stress that a lot of Penguins fans are going through when it comes to whether or not Malkin or Letang are going to return. With that being said, though, Malkin is still a pretty good player. Sure, he is not the 100-plus point guy as he was in previous seasons of his career, nor is he probably going to win another Art Ross trophy, but the fact that he's 35 years old and he still put up 42 points in 41 games played this season is significant. He had as many points as 74 in 55 games back in 2019-20, although the previous 2 years had been plagued with injuries. Malkin, for all intents and purposes, is still a powerful, strong scorer with a fantastic playmaking edge, honestly one of the most underrated players in the entire league because he played in the shadow of Sidney Crosby. When Crosby was out, Malkin went out there and won himself an Art Ross. Malkin also went out there and he won himself the Hart. This guy is a storied NHL veteran who still has very significant point-producing potential. But if you go over to some recent articles published by people in the Pittsburgh bubble and who are talking about everything that's going down, you start to feel a little bit ominous as to whether or not the Penguins are going to keep this guy around. This is Penguins reporter Josh Yohei's recent article about the Pittsburgh Penguins on The Athletic from June 28, 2022. What I'm hearing about the Penguins. Here's a talk about Malkin, Letang, Trocheck, Hextall, and JT Miller. Now, the article is paywalled. It's on The Athletic, so we're not going to go ahead and screenshot it. The link will be in the description if you have The Athletic and you want to read this, but essentially Yohei goes over the two main Penguins. He talks about the management, and then he goes over Trocheck and Miller because Trocheck and Miller are two guys that are being thrown around as potential Malkin replacements should Malkin actually leave the team. That's a conversation for another day. I just wanted to focus on Malkin over here. This is a quote from the article that was posted onto Twitter. According to Josh Yohei, numerous agents have told me that, after conversations they've had with the Penguins GM Ron Hextall, they believe it's unlikely that Evgeni Malkin is returning to Pittsburgh. Some people I've spoken with in the Penguins organization feel the same way. Here are some more quotes of other people in the media. JP Barry was on Donnie and Dolly earlier this week, and he talked about UFA Evgeni Malkin as well. Here's the quote: "They have a lot of players to sign and are up against the cap. Right now, the odds of Malkin returning to Pittsburgh are 50-50. Now, 50-50, firstly, that's my favorite movie of all time. Not only does it feature some of my favorite actors and actresses, but it was filmed in my hometown with some of the scenes being shot literally like a 10-minute walk away from my house. But 50-50, pretty bad odds. I mean, if you're talking in terms of the odds of whether or not a star player is going to sign with your team. In most circumstances, 50-50 isn't too bad. I mean, even in the 50-50 movie I was talking about, one of my favorite quotes is that, hey, if you were a casino game, your odds would be the highest, because 50-50 is significantly high in that context. But still, it does not make Pens fans any happier hearing that Malkin's potential of leaving the team is in that 50% territory. Let's go over onto some more quotes over here. This is what JFresh posted about the Malkin impact and whether or not Pens fans should be concerned about his steep decline this season. I mean, we already said it, he was still a point per game this year, even though he only played half the games. You should also keep in mind that his 5v5 assists declined pretty much entirely because his line mates could not finish their chances. If you just take a look at what Malkin did on the ice, the guy was still a 97 percentile wins above replacement player, which means that he was in the top 3 percentile of all NHL forwards in all situations. Sure, his defense, even strength, was not the best. Sure, his primary assist per 60 was not the best, but when you combine all of these metrics, Malkin is still a beast, even though he is 35 years old, even if he is not the same 100-plus point Hart winner, Art Ross winner that he was before, he is still extraordinary. Let's go over onto another tweet over here. This is the PittsburghSports.com article published by Taylor Haas. This is a quote from Brian Burke talking about the contract negotiation process for Letang and Malkin. We want to sign both players. Everyone should be emphatically clear on that. We would like to bring both players back, and it's coming to a head soon. Now, I will say, there are just a few weeks left before the NHL free agency period opens up, and a few weeks, I mean, a lot can happen in 2 weeks. All you need is really 1 or 2 conversations to change the entire scope of the future here. So, definitely it would not be fair to completely write the Penguins off, but at the same time, when you acknowledge what else this team has to do cap-wise, I mean, there's a reason why everybody has been kind of waiting for the impending doom and gloom that's going to loom over this entire franchise when you have guys like Malkin and Letang eventually leaving. Because Danton Heinen, Kasperi Kapanen, Ricard Raquel, Rodriguez, these guys all need contracts as well. You have Casey DeSmith and Louis Domingue also in need of money. And for a team that has $23 million in cap space, I mean, you could debate that you could use up $23 million on Letang and Malkin alone, let alone with all the other players you're going to have to re-sign as well. So this team certainly is in a peculiar spot, and with Malkin potentially being on the move here, potentially getting sent away to another team, or not sent away, but eventually leaving to another team, it opens the door as to what you should use that money on instead. Because I feel like if the Pittsburgh Penguins really did decide, okay, we're not going to be able to sign one of these two, Malkin or Letang, if one of these guys goes to free agency, you kind of have to pool all the rest of your money you get from losing out on that player into the other guy, right? If Chris Letang, who is just coming off of a fantastic season, is really demanding something north of, let's say, $7.5, $8.5 million, if you leave out Malkin and he goes to free agency, you probably could use some of those extra funds to put towards Letang and guarantee that you don't lose out on both of them, right? Sure, you have other players you're going to have to re-sign, but your franchise superstars kind of have a precedent here that you need to address immediately. And so I really just don't want to be Ron Hextall or Brian Burke right now, sitting in that room trying to negotiate with these agents and talking about what the numbers are worth and everything, because Malkin and Letang are still fantastic hockey players. We all know that they can still contribute a great amount to the NHL in its game, but if Malkin has to do that on some other team, I'm going to be super intrigued to seeing where the Penguins go from there, not just in terms of their financials, but in terms of their direction. And I want to see where Malkin goes. Does he go to Washington to replace Nick Backstrom and play with his buddy Ovi? That sounds like the best sort of fit in my mind, but I know it's kind of treason to even think about, right? Malkin on the Caps? That's like Crosby joining the Caps. And you remember all the history that occurred between those two teams over there, right? So I'm not really too sure. You can tell me in the comments all your thoughts about all of the concerns from Josh Yohei, JP Barry saying that it's 50-50, the segment on Donnie and Dolly where that was the case as well. I'll leave a link in the description to all the articles and stuff that we talked about over here, so you can go ahead and read all those. But Evgeni Malkin, where does his future lie? Is it with the Penguins? Is it with some other team? If it's with some other team, how much does he get on the open market? How much do the Pittsburgh Penguins offer this guy as a max contract they'd be able to go to if Malkin stays around in Penstown? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.